Good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. We are set for a huge day today. We've been waiting all week for today. The market is not really doing anything this morning, which I guess you can say is expected. A lot of times with FOMC meeting days or Powell days, we can call them, the market doesn't really do much until the event actually happens. Today, 2 p.m. Eastern Time is when the FOMC will be released. And then at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time is when Powell actually speaks. So definitely be ready for that. Tom and I will have a bunch of links listed in the Discord at that time so you can check it out. But we're set for a big day, but honestly, it's probably going to be a little boring until later in the day. So Tom, do you have like any setups you're watching, any levels on the S&P, or what are you watching for today?
Yeah, with the S&P, I'm definitely going to be watching this huge $460 support. I think that's going to be very key today. We definitely came down and touched right around that yesterday and then got that nice move to the upside towards the end of the day. And, the market definitely didn't do well yesterday, but it was nice to see it kind of pop back up. Now, if we're able to hold 460, I think that the market could definitely go back on the uptrend, but obviously it's only going to matter with what Powell says. I think that's going to be the main catalyst that the market's looking at today, of course. And like you said, it might be slow until then. And I'm really keeping my eyes on stocks like Apple, Mike, because they look like they are recovering up pretty well so far this morning. Actually, on the 1 minute chart, it actually doesn't look bad, for with how flat the regular market is.
Yeah, definitely not bad. It's a powerhouse. Personally, I think that we're getting towards the end of like the uptrend for the short term, though. Like, I know it's really hard to call tops with Apple, and it's really hard to do that consistently. But I feel like we're getting a little bit overextended, like especially when you look at that daily chart.
Yeah, I do too, actually. Whenever I look at the max daily, it's getting pretty high. We pretty much went straight up from 140 to 180 right here on that bounce. And that's a pretty big move, percentage wise, especially. And whenever I'm looking at this, I could definitely see it pull back as well. It kind of reminds me of like an AMD or an Nvidia here. But it looks like so far today, it is moving up this morning on the 1 minute candles at least, which is a pretty good sign. But I'm with you. I could definitely see it starting to fall off, especially if Powell makes the market drop. They're expected to speed up tapering, and that's been a pretty big deal. The bond purchasing has probably been propping up the market for a pretty large part over the past couple of years. And I think that once we start tapering these pretty rapidly, we'll see the market, I think, start to take a bit of a hit as the Fed quits buying billions of dollars worth of bonds.
There we go. So, Tom, I really want to look at one specific stock today, and that is AI. So, I do like this company for the long term, but they actually just had some great news come out. We can see they're running up right from open. They've been uptrending in pre-market, and news came out today that one, they authorized a $100 million share buyback program over the next 18 months. So, they're going to be buying back $100 million of their own stock. That's really good. That's good for many reasons, but the stock's at a low price, and I think I think it's gonna be pretty good for them. So that's that. And then two, they had a retired lieutenant general join their advisory board. So I know you're probably thinking, well, how is this like great news? And they just had that $500 million deal with the Department of Defense, right? So when you have these retired lieutenant generals joining your board, like I feel like they might have some connections, or they might be able to provide some good like insight or connections or something to get even more deals with the government and specifically like the military later on.
Yeah, they really might. His name is actually Lieutenant General McMaster. Definitely a very interesting name. Sounds like some type of commander from like back in the day, to be honest. It sounds really cool though. I hope definitely helps them get in with, more government stuff. And apparently it says that he brings extensive federal leadership experience across US defense and intelligence. So that's great news. And anytime, we see these contracts coming across, like we saw with the AI over the past couple of weeks, I think that should really help them, Mike, for the longer term. And of course, they're going to be volatile this week, of course. But I'm really happy to see them up today, up 3.2%. That's great news. And it's very interesting that this guy is joining them after they just got that contract, Mike. It almost seems like it's going hand in hand together.
True that. And then, we can't forget about that $100 million share buyback too. Like I know it's not the biggest share buyback program in the market, but still, I mean, I think it's great one for the current holders of the stock, but also two for the company. They're buying they're buying back their shares at a really low price. So I think that should be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's great for them too, but like we always say, 100 million doesn't really affect these companies too much. Like
True.
even Elon Musk selling his billions of shares hasn't really affected, for a large part besides creating more selling pressure. So definitely look at it though. It's a big thing coming up. And the main thing I'm looking at with this, Mike, is with these share buybacks, we've been seeing lots of other companies like I believe like Apple, Walmart, companies like that have been doing these share buybacks for a long time now. And it's been helping them out quite a bit over the past couple of years. So hopefully it helps AI.
You know it. All right. So I just want to welcome everyone to the stream really quickly. Thank you guys so much for joining. Welcome Rick, I'm Fierce, Alex, Vicky, Jesse, Matt, Spacely, Bill, Hunter, and George. Thank you guys so much for joining. Let us know what stocks you're watching. With the first comment, we have Matt saying lithium stocks down, buying opportunity with the question mark. So depends on which lithium stocks you're referring to. Like if we look at like LAC, I can see it falling a little bit more to be honest, but if it's a long-term play, I think it's fine to start averaging into shares, but I could see it retesting maybe like 26 or so.
Yeah, I could too. There's a pretty big support down there right around $26, $25, somewhere really close to there. And whenever you're looking at it, if they fall below that, I could see them going down to 20, but definitely eye up like 25 to 26 first. That's going to be a key level. And, lithium should be good for the long term. So hopefully it gets some nice bounces. But I will say it has been on a pretty crazy uptrend over the past, 3 to 6 months. And I could see it pulling back a little bit more here in the shorter term.
Yep. All right, welcome Power to the stream. We have Kathy saying, what do you think Powell can say that the market will like? Well, when it comes to FOMC press conferences like this, it depends on what Powell says, how he says it, and more important than anything else, how the market interprets it, right? And a lot of times it's just like algorithms and code that's, analyzing the FOMC statement in seconds and assigning either a bullish or bearish tone to it. So, we've seen many times where the FOMC meeting was, I don't want to say bad, but Powell said some things that are definitely not good and the market blasts up. And at the same time, it's kind of like an earnings report. Like sometimes we have good earnings and the market falls and you know what I mean? So it really just depends on how the market interprets it. One thing to keep in mind though, is that generally speaking, when rates are rising, the market does not really like that. But keep in mind, given the pretty bad inflation data that we've been continuing to see, and based off of last meeting, the market is expecting, I guess you could say, news of a faster taper and maybe something about raising rates like in the future. Like, of course, he's probably not going to raise rates, today, but like down the line, I'm sure investors are expecting that. But so yeah.
Yeah, if they did actually raise rates today, that would be pretty crazy. But currently the rates are at 0.25% and they are expected to stay the same until, around the middle of next year. I think that they're saying between like the second and third quarter is around where like the analysts are expecting it, at least according to like some articles I've been reading on CNBC and stuff. And, we really don't know what they're going to do. Like Mike said, it's like an earnings report. So it's almost like a 50-50, 50-50 move here. You don't know which way it's going to go. And the thing I will say is that Powell's been doing a lot of stuff lately with saying, transitory and stuff like that. And recently he took that away. So I'm thinking that possibly they're going to change their tone here. I'm thinking that they're going to talk about speeding up tapering. That's what's expected. And like Mike said, they're probably not going to raise rates, but they might talk about doing it sooner next year than expected. Pretty much all of this year, Powell's been saying that at the end of next year, they were going to raise rates. And now it's starting to become in the middle of next year. And now it might even go into like the first couple of quarters. So it's definitely going to be big to see what that projection is for the rates. And, the market, like you said, Mike, it generally doesn't like it whenever rates are going up. So if we do hear news of that rates might be rising sooner than expected, the SPY might go down. But just keep in mind, I said might because, we never know. Sometimes the news will come out that should send the market down. And like Mike said, it can go right back up sometimes.
And then, Tom, another thing to keep in mind is Powell just got renominated, so
Yeah.
he has his job secured basically for the next term. And I wonder if Powell was just like trying to like really keep the market nice and up and like slow and steady until he like secured the nomination or the re-election, you can say. Now that he's like back in, or now that he's secured for his next term, I wonder if, like you said, like if he might change his tone to raise rates a little bit sooner. Because here's the thing, no one loves to raise rates. Like raising rates, the market normally freaks out and it falls and stuff. But at the same time, you can't keep rates at 0 to 0.25% forever. Like you just can't do that. And if you do, it'll just create a worse problem down the line. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but we're definitely in for an interesting day. So great question, Kathy. And then let's see. We have Mike saying good morning. I'm still holding UVXY. Let's take a look at UVXY. Like I know the market was tanking down a little bit yesterday. UVXY is up like 4%.
Yeah, it actually is. It's doing pretty well, I will say. Even today at market open, it looks like it's popping up quite a bit, up 3.6%. Looking pretty good. It's actually moving off the 100 SMA as well, which is a pretty good sign that it's staying up above that. And I really hope that that VXX and UVXY end up popping. Of course, if the market ends up going down and they talk about raising rates, I think that's a great hedge to have. So I think that's a great pickup, and I'm glad you're still holding it, to be honest. I think that's a smart move heading into this event. And, especially if you have some like long-term positions and stuff, it's a very smart move.
Yep. All right. And then we have Jesse saying that was a green bar on Tesla. Tesla, let's take a look. It is, yeah, I mean, it's trying, not bad.
Yeah, definitely not bad. I think that's a pretty good green candle so far. One thing I will point out is that we saw Apple moving up at the beginning of the day, and then they went actually pretty volatile. We can see on the 1 minute candle, they flew up, they came right back down, and then they went up again, and now they're just consolidating. But, definitely keep it on the radar. It looks like Tesla is kind of coming back down now on the 1 minute. So don't be surprised if it ends up doing something like Apple and just going, all over the place. I will say, if you guys see some moves this morning, be pretty careful playing them, because with all the events going on, you just never know like how the market's going to react.
Yep. All right. And then we have Matt saying, how long is Powell's term? 4 years. It's 4 years a term, so he should be in there for 8 years. And then we have Vicky saying Powell's background is from the capital and credit markets. He knows very well what, how, and when things have to happen. Yeah, he's a very smart guy. I give him a lot of credit for everything that has happened over the past couple years. He's definitely handled it very well. But at the same time, he definitely wants to. He definitely wanted a second term, and sometimes you have to. I guess you could say juggle between keeping rates for as low as reasonable as possible, and securing that like second term, if that makes sense. But either way, Powell, he's a great Fed chair, and he's done a very, very great job over the past couple of years, and I definitely have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, me too. I know that whenever him and Lair Brannard, I think that was her name, whenever him and Lael anyways, whenever they were kind of in that, in the heat of like that election or that nomination, I was looking into both of their backgrounds pretty extensively. And I will say Powell has a like she said, Powell has a lot of experience. He's worked for lots of different like banks, different like investment firms and stuff like that. And I think that's a really good thing to see out of the markets. Now, the person who was going to be nominated for him had obviously, she was a very smart person, of course, but she didn't really work in too many financial institutions and stuff. She had just, gotten like some economics degrees and obviously like master's degrees, some pretty good credible stuff. But in the end though, Powell had been working for all these institutions, so maybe he'd be a little bit more bullish on the market. And like people had said, Powell owns a lot of stocks himself, so that's I think that's a good sign, because I think that means he's going to try to keep the market up, as best as he can. But like Mike said, he's really trying to juggle a bunch of stuff right now. He has to worry about, obviously, like Biden trying to replace him and all that stuff. So hopefully now everything's resolved, and I think we can start to get back on track with possibly raising rates a little bit, because whenever rates are this low, this is why the inflation's going crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to borrow. These people are just honestly, like, it's making, I know it's not as helpful for the normal individuals, but it's honestly really good for, like, huge firms, investment banks, and stuff like that. That's who's really benefiting from these low rates.
Yeah, I mean, look at the market, Tom. Over the past 2 years, like the COVID 2020 low, the S&P or the SPY was at like 225, right? Like right around there, and now it's at 473. I mean, that was one of the quickest recoveries I think in market history, and that was I mean, we've just been on a crazy uptrend for the past year or two, and I think I saw a study somewhere like every time the market doubles from like a recent low or something like that, there's normally like a 5 to 10% pullback. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen this time. But historically, it happens quite a bit. I'll try and find the article.
Yeah, I actually remember hearing about that. And, whenever, like you said, that recovery was actually way quicker than expected. Like, whenever we go back to the early 2000s, this is the chart of the early 2000s for the S&P 500 here. And, you can see that during the dot-com bubble, stocks were exploding. And then we had a huge crash that lasted like almost 2 or 3 years there. And then we started rising back up, of course, recovering. And you can see how long it took to recover back. And this is not even like 100% of a recovery here. We went from $80 back up to 160, almost 100%, but definitely nothing like we're seeing now. And it took a lot longer to happen. And then then we had another crash, and then it took a long time to recover again. It took all the way till 2013 to finally break above those highs of 2000. And then, like you said, Mike, nowadays we're seeing some crazy moves. So I don't know, like sometimes the market, whenever we see big moves up like this, Mike, like you said, you just almost have to expect a pullback. And there is certain statistics that would suggest that it might happen.
Yep. All right. So, Tom, so far today, we are not looking too good. Roblox is tanking down pretty big. It's down 12%. It's one of the biggest movers, and they are giving back a lot of their gains over the past couple of months. Kind of reminds me of like a UPST setup. Like they had that one explosion earnings report like on November 1st, and then they're just like slowly giving back all their gains.
I'm actually really surprised to see this. I thought that whenever they started exploding with that metaverse news and all of that, I thought they would really start to go up. But you're right. It almost looks like a spitting image of UPST. Even like it slowly went up and then exploded, and now it's just tanking down pretty quickly. So, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a very crazy setup, to say the least. And I just, it really scares me for some of these tech stocks that are starting to, turn over here. It's just not a good time. I know that obviously the metaverse is supposed to help. Roblox has had a lot of hype this year, but it's just a very sad thing to see it coming down like this, and it's happening pretty quickly. An 11% day is definitely a pretty bad day, and we're not even seeing any bad news really. It's just honestly more a movement. So I don't really know what to think about it too much. It says I'm looking through the news, and it says that their shares are trading lower after the company issued average bookings per daily active user guidance. So I don't know. Definitely sounds like there's some pretty crazy stuff going on, but I cannot believe they're down this much, Mike. They moved from 141 down to below 100. I mean, wow, what a big move.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, and then we have Matt saying, rookie question, would the SPY ever split? Probably not. I mean, anything's possible, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, I doubt that'll happen. I mean, it probably could. I'm not sure. There might be some rules in place saying that it can't, given that it's a certain type of ETF or something. But I don't know. I don't know too much the individual specifics of it, but I would think it could. That would definitely be crazy though to see, Mike.
Yeah, like I'm sure it's possible, but it's unlikely. I've never heard of the SPY splitting. Like one thing I have noticed is like if we look at the SPY, and then so we could see like the price right now is at like, let's say 461.80, right? And then go to the SPX. So SPY 461.80. This is at like 462. 20, right? Like the SPX is like almost times 10 of the SPY, if that means anything. But generally speaking, I have never heard of the SPY even thinking about a split, but I'm sure it's possible under certain situations, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably very unlikely, and it's going to be a crazy thing if that does happen. But honestly, it's probably not even going to really happen. So there's no point, pondering about it too long. But man, Mike, we're seeing too many stocks go down today. Unfortunately, it's a rough day. Unfortunately, it's all these growth stocks again. Like look at NIO actually tanking below the low of yesterday now, falling almost down to below $31 now. So definitely a huge move to the downside. We have AMC giving back some of those gains from yesterday. LCID is another big one to the downside again, down 4%. Now it's not a huge move for them, but it's definitely 4% is definitely not too good of a day by any means. And we're just seeing these growth stocks, unfortunately, Mike, just continuing to stay down. But the good news is that we are seeing the value stocks that have been doing well, like Coca-Cola, continue to go up. KO is doing very well. ABBV looks like they're doing well. They've been doing well this week as well. And even Walmart, which has had a pretty good week, is going up again.
Very good point. Yeah, I mean, like you said, just a lot of stocks are bleeding. Specifically, Roku, like they're down 7%, and they're getting very, very close to that $200 support. I mean, this one's getting destroyed, and it's just like, even when it tries to pop up, it's just like there's so much selling pressure. And you can say the same thing about Roblox right now, or you could even say the same thing about Peloton. Like that one's getting smacked too, down 4.5%, just like Hunter pointed out. Peloton getting dumped on. But yeah, I mean, it's making a new low.
Yeah, it is. That is a pretty bad thing to see with Peloton here, to be honest. They're starting to fall below that huge $40 support that I think on the daily looked like it could have possibly held up. But, they had a huge move on that gap to the downside, Mike, was awful. It was like a 40% move, I think it was that day. Like it was so bad that it honestly blew my mind whenever it happened. And, I know that these COVID plays have been rough, but I didn't think it was that rough. But man, I guess it is. But looking at Zoom, they're even down today too, down 1.9%. It's just a really tough go for these reopening plays, Mike. Or I shouldn't say the reopening, for the COVID stocks like Zoom, Peloton, and even stuff like that. It's just unfortunate to see. We've been waiting so long for a turnaround on these stocks that we thought maybe it was going to happen pretty soon, but hopefully Powell can help these things turn around. Because if not, man, I'm getting pretty worried. Like if the SPY starts tanking off, I was hoping for a transition into some of these stocks, but we might see them just continue to go down here.
Yep. We have Vicky saying hit the like, guys. So yeah, if you guys like the stream, it would help us out so much if you could hit that like button. It takes like 2 seconds, and we greatly appreciate it. But then we have Hunter saying CLX outperformed all growth over the past few weeks as we expected. Tommy Tenders. But
there we go. I love to see that one.
Yeah, CLX is doing good, Tom. I know you and Hunter have been eyeing that one up for a while, and it's definitely trending up there, and we're getting pretty close to a breakout.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it looks like we're about to break out above 175. And if we do, I mean, we'll probably fill this gap here, possibly up to like 178.50 or 180 pretty easily. But I'll tell you, this thing's right on the 1,000 SMA on the daily chart, and it has been really consolidating here. Like we can see, it's created actually a really nice like head and shoulders pattern right around the 160 support. I think it looks very good for the long term. And I've been buying up a lot of Kraft Heinz myself personally, and honestly, I think I'm going to readjust here and possibly sell like half of my Kraft and then get some CLX with it as well. Because man, this is such a great move, and I think both companies are going to do amazing with over the next year with inflation. But CLX is setting up so nicely on the daily chart, Mike. Like, oh man, it just looks like such a good longer term play right here.
There we go. And then I know Hunter like mentioned like the growth stocks and like comparing them to value stocks, but like if you look at like Johnson and Johnson, that one is exploding up too. I know you mentioned Coca-Cola earlier, Tom, but like even like PG, like Procter and Gamble, like all the value stocks are exploding up, and we're just seeing a rotation clearly out of growth and into value, which we see every couple of months or so. But it's just something to keep in mind. And I'm really curious on how everything's going to move after this FOMC today. Like I know, if they intend to raise rates sooner than expected, or if they see worse inflation than expected, it'll be pretty bad for growth companies. And at the same time, maybe if they, say that they are going to continue to taper in a fast way, but inflation's not as bad as they expect, that could be really good for growth companies. So, we'll see what happens, but we're definitely set for a big day. And so far, it's not looking too good for a lot of stocks. Like, yeah, some of them are popping up, but at the same time, like when you have some companies like Roku down 7%, it's definitely pretty scary.
Yeah, it is. Like, of course, we always like to highlight the nice ones that are running for everybody, but man, most of my watch list is red, and it's red in a pretty big way. Like even Snapchat, some of these some of these social media companies that I thought would do pretty well are starting to turn back around. Even XPEV, which has been a pretty good electric vehicle stock, ends up going down again as well. NIO is having a really bad day, down like almost 4%, like we talked about earlier. Just definitely not good today for most stocks. I'm really liking the setup though on PFE, Mike. I know they've had some pretty good vaccine news, and I'll tell you what, they're actually popping pretty well, and the setup looks good too. Like they broke out pretty well up above 56, and it was just a very nice resistance for them to bounce off of today before they rose.
Yeah, true that. And then we have Mike saying, oh, look at DraftKings. Are you guys still in this? Absolutely. DraftKings, I know it's getting destroyed again. A lot of growth companies are definitely still in it. I love it for the long term. Just one thing to keep in mind is like the sell-off we are seeing with DraftKings right now is not specific to DraftKings. If you look at DraftKings or Zoom or Peloton or AI or Corsair or even Roku, or I guess you could say Roblox, or like even PayPal right now, like a lot of growth companies are getting destroyed. So keep in mind that like this news with DraftKings falling, it's not like DraftKings came out and said, oh, we're like some bad company news. It's more about the market. So I still love DraftKings. They're a great company. They have a ton of long-term potential, and they're at a great price point. But it definitely does suck to see this short-term movement, because it's definitely been on a downtrend for quite some time.
Yeah, it has. It's been a long time since we've started to go back to the upside, and we might end up going back up pretty soon. I would think maybe like within the first couple of quarters of this next year of 2022. I feel like that we might start to get a pretty good move back up. And one thing that I've been kind of pondering over the past few weeks, Mike, is I've been seeing, like, of course, some stocks like Apple and Microsoft continue to go up and make new highs, and it looks like over the past couple of days, of course, they're starting to pull back. I'm wondering if maybe, like DraftKings and all these major stocks like PayPal, Facebook, even, they started getting these humongous moves to the downside over the past few weeks. And, of course, some of the bigger companies are holding up and some of the good value stocks. But I feel like that maybe like whenever we saw DraftKings and a lot of these stocks going down, I feel like that maybe some of these other ones like Apple have to catch up. You know what I mean? Like these stocks might have been, they obviously had worse balance sheets. They don't have as much cash on hand. So they're not able to like prevent, the type of drops that we're seeing, as well as like companies like Apple, Microsoft, and the rest. And, if we see like Powell possibly indicate that they're going to be raising rates sooner than expected, I feel like once we start to see Apple and Microsoft and the rest start to pull back, we're going to see the SPY, I think, start to take a pretty big downtrend as well. And, whenever that happens, I think that we'll finally see then maybe some of these growth stocks go up once the SPY starts to fall off pretty drastically. But keep in mind, I think it's going to take a pretty big move. And obviously, this is going to be it's going to take a few months for all this stuff to end up playing out, the way that everybody wants. So if you are in these growth stocks and you like them for the long term, just keep in mind, you're going to need a few months of time, or you're going to need some shares, or just something where you can hold it for the long term, because, it's going to take a while to turn around. Like we're not just going to shoot back up to $50 overnight or anything like that.
Of course. All right, and then we have Mike saying, don't forget Costco is a great value stock. Yeah, it's definitely a great one. It's been holding up very, very well. They pay a dividend, which is nice. They have some pretty good earnings, and definitely a solid company there. But yeah, I mean, Tom, so far, a lot of stocks are falling down. AI is actually looking pretty good, though. They're now up 6%. They're breaking their high of day, too.
Yeah, they're continuing. They're up around that $33 resistance. It looks like they might break that to the upside. It looks like it's like their second time testing it today. And they've been having a nice move, I will say, especially for how the overall market's been, especially the growth stock. So I'm really happy to see this today. And it's almost like this good news couldn't have came at a better time for them. Like we have all this stuff going on with Powell and all the other stocks are going down in a major way. And I'm really glad that they had this news so that we didn't see them going down 4% too.
True. All right, and then we have Sean saying, or just asking about Starbucks puts. Just fell through the 1,000 SMA on the 5 minutes. So, yeah, I mean, that's good to see. Just one thing is that Starbucks is kind of a value stock, and, value stocks are looking pretty good right now. So, yes, I mean, it can fall. I mean, it's definitely breaking down a little bit. It's just the group of stocks that Starbucks is in is doing pretty well. So you're fighting against the trend just a little bit.
Yeah, you are. And one thing I do want to point out, Sean, is while it did fall through the 1,000 SMA, keep in mind that 1,000 SMA is also very, very close to the 114 support. And we can see that the stock actually touched 114 a couple of times. And even yesterday, you can see it broke down below the 1,000 very slightly for just a couple of minutes there before popping right back up off that support. So I would say be very careful of this 114 support. Even though it did go through the SMA, it might bounce here. So definitely eye up 114. If it falls through that, I think it could be good for puts in the short term. But at the same time, I think that there's a lot of other stocks that'll probably move more of in a major way. Like we're seeing lots of stocks down 4 or 5% today that I think will move a lot better than Starbucks. Like if Starbucks breaks 114, it's a pretty slow mover. It might fall to like 113.50 or something, and the options might not move too much.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just doing a quick scan. It looks like Square is breaking down as well. SQ. Wow. I mean, this is a solid company, Tom. Or they actually just changed their name to Block. I don't know if you saw that, but they're actually breaking down in a huge way. Like just a couple months ago, they were at 290, and now they're at 165.
Yeah, again, it's not even really just them either. Like PayPal's going down in a major way. It's just, I honestly never expected to see Square and PayPal down the way they are. I think those two companies have been so key for the past like 10 years. And it's just crazy to see them both moving like that. It's blowing my mind. And I really hope Square can do better. I know that they're supposed to get more into like a lot of the crypto stuff. And I know Twitter's CEO actually stepped down, or Jack Dorsey stepped down from Twitter to focus more on Square getting implemented with crypto and everything like that. So hopefully he actually helps them out. And I know that was very interesting to see them change their name to Block. I wonder if they honestly, like, Jack Dorsey was the Twitter CEO. I wonder if he saw like Mark Zuckerberg change Facebook to Meta and he's like, maybe we should change the Block. Like I don't know like if that's a possibility or what, but it was very weird to see them both change names right around the same time.
I'm sure he got some. I'm sure he did get some inspiration from Facebook changing their name, but I'm actually really, really tempted to like dip by some Square right now just for the long term. Like honestly, like yes, the downtrend does look pretty bad, and it can easily fall more. Like this thing can easily go to like 150 or maybe even like 140. But like for a longer term play, I'm actually really tempted to average into this one. Jack Dorsey, like he is supposed to be focusing a lot more with like blockchain and cryptos with Square too, and I feel like Square is in a pretty good industry as it already stands. So I'm actually really, really tempted to like, just to like have like a starter position. Like nothing crazy, but maybe like 5% of the total intended position, and then just like slowly add more like every week.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome right now. They're continuing to go down, of course, but they're getting to some of these pretty key support levels pretty soon. There's a huge one coming up around 150 even. So I definitely like it as well. And for the long term, like that Jack Dorsey, of course, he's a pretty big name. He's not just he's just not gonna like slouch down and just leave the headlines or anything. So I think that he'll end up doing some pretty crazy stuff. And obviously like Bitcoin and stuff has been on a bit of a downtrend lately as well. So maybe Square will start to go up a little bit more, like whenever Bitcoin starts to, get some more hype back.
Yeah. And then more important than anything else, like I'm curious to see how Square adapts to, incorporate Bitcoin or other cryptos into their platform, or like blockchain or anything like that, because I feel like that's a really good quality to have, like let's say for example, like the world wanted to start using Bitcoin as payment. I feel like Square would be one of like the leading companies to make that a reality. I'm not sure, like I'm sure you saw them, Tom. Like whenever you go into like a restaurant or just like a coffee shop or something, they have those little Square terminals, and I feel like if they implement, the ability to accept cryptos as payment, like I feel like like that could be huge. Like who knows what they have in store.
Yeah, I know. And they even own Cash App, which has been pretty big. I think you can even buy crypto on Cash App if I remember correctly. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully I know that they're integrated in tons of ways. And I've actually used their Square, I don't know what you call them, their Square chip readers, I guess. And I've used them at like food trucks and stuff like that. People are using them all the time. So it's definitely a really cool thing. And I'm glad they came out with it. And honestly, like that Cash App stuff has been pretty crazy. I know that people have been sending money so much that even the government wants to start taxing it. So it's pretty crazy to see how much that Square's grown. And they keep innovating. Like you said, they're innovators. I can't wait to see like what else comes out of this. Like I know that Cash App should be pretty big, and hopefully they come out with something like where you can like send crypto back and forth or something. That would be awesome.
Yep. All right, and then we have Sean saying Starbucks crashed. Yeah, I mean you definitely eyed it out, Sean. I mean they definitely fell right below that SMA, and they're breaking down. How is the market overall doing? I'm curious. So yeah, I mean the market overall is. I mean I guess it's falling today, but it's not crashing or anything just yet.
Yeah, not crashing, but I will say we're seeing some pretty big stocks down. Like Apple looks like it's kind of setting up for some pretty big drops here, in my opinion. It fell below 174. It looks like it's kind of like retesting that level now. And if we fail to break back up above that, it's not going to be a good morning. And Microsoft had a huge sell-off yesterday. It looks like they're actually kind of coming back up a little bit, which is good to see. It was very strange to see Microsoft sell off so drastically yesterday, and then I saw, Apple, of course, and a couple of the others actually stayed up. So it was just that was a really crazy move, I thought, with Microsoft yesterday. And I'm glad it didn't drag the market down too much. But man, today I could see the market falling pretty drastically if Apple and the rest continue to fall like it looks like they are.
All right, and then we have Alex saying, hopefully Uncle Powell can bring this market to a clear one direction, because I'm running out of Dramamine. Yeah, I feel you for sure. It's been choppy over the past couple weeks. Like really, it's been kind of rough. Like we have Apple exploding up one week, and then tech stocks falling down, and then value stocks running up. Like it's been crazy. It's just been so much volatility. Like we have chip stocks doing nothing. Like we have AMD pulled up on the chart. And how about these China stocks, Tom? Like specifically Baba. This thing was exploding yesterday. Today it gave back all of its gains in literally, like I want to say 10 minutes from market open. Like literally it's right back to where it was yesterday. Like uptrend completely stopped.
Yeah, I will tell you, I was eyeing this one up for a possible break up above this like 127.75 or 127.76 high. And man, they failed to break out above there, which was very unfortunate. I was really hoping for a big move out of these China stocks, but hey, I got the big move. It was just the wrong way, Mike.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh yeah. I mean, it's just been they've been so crazy, and like China stocks are like on steroids of volatility compared to some of these other stocks, but it's definitely been rough. And then we have Johnny Leverage saying, I'm trying to get into fintech, which are at great levels right now, but all of them are so similar. Square, SoFi, AFRM, UPST, PayPal, not sure which one to bet on. So, I mean, they're similar, but they're also different. Like, like Upstart's more of like a lending company, where PayPal is, more for like transactions and online payments, and like Affirm is for like buy now, pay later. So like they are similar, but they're also unique. Out of them, I like Square is one of the best ones. I'm definitely I'm definitely considering getting into UPST as well, but I have not pulled the trigger on that one just yet. But it doesn't hurt. Like if you just want to get a little bit of all of them, they're pretty solid companies, and if you plan on holding them for a couple years, they should do pretty well.
Yeah, I think so too. I honestly, I would just get a little bit of all of them, and maybe you can pick and choose like here or there, like which ones you like better. Like right now, I think Square and PayPal are probably the two, obviously like the two bigger players. I think those ones will be a little bit safer for the long term, but UPST and AFRM are no slouches as well. And like Mike said, if you just get a little of all of them, it'll be pretty good. And maybe we can find like an ETF or something that has those in there.
True. Yeah, I'm just on Finviz right now, and I'm looking at the all of the software infrastructure companies, which is what is the industry that Square is in, and they are the fourth largest U.S. Software infrastructure company, which is pretty big. I mean, Microsoft is number one, Adobe's number two, Oracle's number three, and then Square's number four. And Microsoft is the number one software infrastructure company. Keep in mind that Apple is in a different industry, and I'm pulling that up right now. It looks like Apple's in the consumer electronics industry, which I guess you can say is also expected.
Yeah, and Apple, I know they have some payment system stuff as well, like of course integrated like with their iOS stuff and everything like that. So they kind of do stuff like that, but not in the same exact sense, I'd say. But honestly, I like them. I like all these companies for the long term. And Mike, one setup that you said was ORCL, and recently they had a huge move to the upside. I remember talking about this one in yesterday's live stream or the YouTube video, and I'll tell you what, they're actually turning around pretty well today, going back to the upside.
Yeah, they are holding up very well, especially on a day or even just a week where a lot of these other stocks are tanking.
Yeah, I know. I was not expecting to see him up this much again like this, especially like you said, with the rest of these stocks going down. And actually, my watch list has been slowly turning green as we've been talking. It's not every stock, of course, but like I've had AMD come back in the green over the past few minutes. Looks like Nvidia is also back in the green, which is good to see. Oracle, of course. We have AbbVie. CVS has been doing pretty good. Like some of these stocks look like they're coming back up.
Yeah, well, that's good at least. I mean, it's no one loves to see the market bleeding, but how is like the market overall doing? Because I know we covered a lot of specific stocks, but how's the SPY doing?
Yeah, it looks like it was obviously falling down pretty drastically at market open. And over the past few minutes, it looks like it's been trying to come back up ever so slightly. Or, like I said, I've been seeing a few stocks on my watch list turn green. So, of course, the SPY is coming up very, very slightly. But I will say it still looks like it's overall, in my opinion, more of an overall move to the downside. Definitely looks bearish to me. And if we fail to move up whenever Powell speaks, I mean, if we break below 460, I could see the SPY starting to really slide off to the downside. And, I'm looking at like the 90-day, 15-minute chart here, and that 460 support is going to be pretty key. Like ever since we broke that, we failed to break back below. So hopefully we can stay up above that, but it's not looking too good in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. So we covered most of the main stocks so far. I'm just doing a quick scan, and I'll tell you, like, I'm just seeing a lot of selling pressure out there. There's a lot of stocks selling off. I know we already covered Roku, but it's pretty crazy. Are you seeing like any major news?
Nothing too major. I was on CNBC trying to find some big news. It says airline CEOs face Senate panel over flight cancellations after taking $54 billion in taxpayer aid. So that's pretty good. Elon Musk actually just came out with a quote that says, "I'll be surprised if we're not landing on Mars within 5 years." So that sounds pretty good. Maybe that'll help out some of these companies like RKLB or, some of those other space companies. I know it's probably not going to help out SPCE too much, which continues to tank off, but, maybe it'll help out some of these other ones like Rocket Lab or, some of those other like rocket companies. But either way, I know it's not going to be too much. It's not going to have much impact on the market, but that's definitely some very interesting news. But it seems like for the most part, CNBC is just honestly, it seems like most people are just awaiting the interest rate hike. Apparently it says that they're expected to take a very big step towards a rate hike. And, if that happens, I would say, definitely look at the market dropping, but, we never know how the market's going to react.
Yep. All right. And then one other thing I just wanted to point out is when we look at Roku specifically, this goes to show you like just like the way that the market anticipates movement. So look at Roku, it's down 8.3%, right? Yes, it's a pretty big move. Some of the put options on Roku are up anywhere from like 600 to 1100% today. Like I'm looking at the 180 strike puts that expired this Friday. Yesterday they were trading for $11. Right now they're trading for 141. So it goes to show you, like, when the market tanks, as long as IV is like relatively low before it tanks, like the options go crazy. And you can see the same thing for the market, and you can see the same thing about stocks, right? Like Roku, it's getting destroyed and no one was expecting it. So when you're looking at earnings events or Fed days or like highly anticipated catalysts, when that IV's low, sometimes it really pays to be in the options market.
Yeah, it really can, for sure. And, as long as you pick that direction correctly, it's going to pay off for you big time. Like we've seen some pretty crazy stuff. I've seen Mike, some people like I remember on Tesla Day, like a long time ago, I've seen some people, make some pretty crazy amounts of money on like they'll throw like $1,000 at like some Tesla calls and walk away at the end of the day with like 30 grand and stuff like that. So I've seen some crazy stuff go on, and that's awesome to see it happen with Roku. And that's a good point. If the IV's low, you have a pretty good chance to buy right there, because if that move comes, I mean, like Mike said, I mean, you're getting in at a very low price, not just on the stock, but on the options, of course. That's what we're talking about.
Yep. All right. So then we have Anderson saying, "Good morning, fellas. Your thoughts on CLSK for the long haul, and do you think Palantir could go lower at this point?" So honestly, I don't really follow CLSK at all. The chart looks pretty rough, to be honest. Like even looking at the max weekly, like it looks pretty bad, to be honest with you. But then again, I do not follow it, so I'm gonna stay neutral on it. The chart looks bad, so if anything, I'm just neutral to bearish.
Yeah, I would say on this one, I'm neutral to bearish on it as well. One thing I will say is that over the past couple of years, like in my opinion, it kind of looks like a growth stock. Like it almost, like if I look at CLSK's setup over the past like 6 months to a year, and then I go look at something like RUN, I feel like that they're in the same exact type of setup, and RUN might be even doing a little bit worse. So I think CLSK could be pretty good for the long term, but like Mike said, we just don't know anything about their background. And like I've been hearing so much about RUN and all these other companies, but CLSK hasn't been in the headlines too much.
Yeah, so like we said, this is like the first time we're hearing about this company. We don't follow them at all. We're just going off the chart. So always trust your gut. And then he said, "Do you think Palantir could go lower at this point?" Yes, it's possible. I mean, I hope not, obviously, but it is at a pretty major support level, right around 18. Growth stocks have been getting destroyed lately, so it's definitely possible. The next support's right around 17. So maybe they retest 17, but I think we're getting towards the end of this phase.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you it would never go down again, but I'd probably be lying if I did. So I don't want to say that. But in the end, I love the $18 support. Like Mike said, I love the way it's moving here over the past 2 days. I think that it's showing that it's definitely that $18 support definitely has some strength. So that's a good sign. But if we see stocks tank down with Powell speaking, unfortunately, this one's probably going to go down in the short term too. So just always be careful with it. Honestly, I love this one for shares for the long term. Like if you just start averaging in, I think you'll be so happy in the next couple of years.
All right, and then Mike said, "Ouch, MTTR." Yeah, Matterport. They're a solid company, but yeah, they're definitely hurting today. Yeah, I mean, it just sucks. A lot of solid companies are getting beat down, which does hurt, which does suck to see for the short term, but for the long term, they should be fine. And when these companies get destroyed like this, like I said, it definitely does hurt, but it also provides a lot of opportunity. Like when you look back throughout history, some of the biggest, or I would say almost all of the biggest opportunities come from when the market's looking tough, and we're definitely seeing the market be pretty tough right now. with that being said, averaging in or like even just adding to positions when they're lower can be great. Or even if you wanted to get a little bit riskier, you can always convert, some of your positions into options to, you know, to I guess you could say put yourself in a situation for a higher reward in the future. But that's a conversation for a different video. But either way, they're a solid company.
Yeah, I think they'll be pretty good, even though they're going down in the short term. Keep in mind, it's only been honestly like a few weeks of downwards movement. Like they've had a pretty good year. They're definitely up from that like low of $10.45, which is an amazing thing to see. They're still up like over 100% from that. So that's great. I think that they'll be amazing for the long term. And, they had a lot of hype with the metaverse there for a while. And honestly, I think it's such a good company. Like they do, it's not even just the metaverse. Like they're big in the real estate sector as it is alone. So I think that I think they'll be pretty good. I really like the price point too, around $20. I think that's going to be a pretty big support here.
All right, and then we have Vicky asking for levels on AMD and Nvidia.
Yeah, AMD is popping up today. They're up 1.12%, actually getting really close to this resistance of yesterday. I don't know if I'm sure I know why she's asking, but looking at it, obviously AMD is having a little bit of a move back up. I will say though, if Powell makes the market go down later, these tech stocks will probably take a pretty big hit. So, I will say it's going to be dependent more on what he says, not rather on these levels here, but I'm definitely seeing a big resistance here right around 138. I think that's going to be a huge level to look at. We've definitely moved off of that a lot. Yesterday's high of day was right around 137 to 137.20. It looks like we're just now touching that. So we might get a move off of this to the downside right here, or we might break this up. We'll just have to see. But Powell's going to be the main thing to look for with these two plays. She also said Nvidia, right?
Yeah, and then did you have like any other supports on AMD?
On AMD, yeah, there's definitely a big support down here around like 134. I think that's going to be huge, of course. We also passed up above 136 today, which I saw as a pretty big support as well. So I think 136 and 134 are going to be the good intraday supports to look at.
Sounds good. And then Nvidia. So this one's been a powerhouse too. Tom, what do you have for us here?
On this one, the big support is going to be at 280. I think that one's huge. Of course, we've definitely touched that one a lot. There's also going to be a huge resistance right around 287. And we've definitely bounced off of that one intraday today as well. It looks like we're actually about to break up above 287 pretty soon, actually. So if we break up above that, I could see a pretty big move, possibly back up to this 290 resistance.
There we go. All right, well, Tom, I think we're set for a pretty big day today. A lot of stocks are tanking down so far. Do you have any closing thoughts or any last minute plays?
Not too many last minute plays. I will say though, as far as the market goes, I think VXX and Uvxy might be a pretty good thing to maybe just grab and hold just a couple shares or a few call options or whatever I don't know, like it just depends on your guys' accounts and everything like that. But I think if you guys have some longer term plays, I think that Uvxy and VXX could be pretty good for the short term. Of course, it's going to be a hedge play, so it might not always work out, but I feel like that if the market tanks, these ones are going to move up in a pretty drastic way. Now, it's going to be very volatile all day. Expect a lot of up and down movement into Powell speaking later. I think that we're going to probably, like we're seeing now, the SPY had a pretty bad day and it looks like it's recovering up. I wouldn't be surprised if we recovered up and then came back down before he talked or something crazy. So definitely keep everything on the radar, guys. The big sectors I'm looking at are the tech stocks like Apple, Microsoft, and these big chip stocks like AMD and Nvidia. I feel like if we see those stocks start to fly up, obviously after Powell speaks, then I think the market will recover pretty well. But if they start to fall, then I think we'll see these indices start to tank off in a pretty drastic way.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining today. Be ready for Powell speaking later at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're set for a big day. But besides that, thank you guys so much for joining and have an amazing rest of your day.